Dave Parody here with another Slide Makeover video podcast based on the ideas in my book, The Visual Slide Revolution. Today's slide comes from one that was sent to me when I was doing a workshop recently for an organization, and here's the slide that they sent. What they're talking about here is a list of challenges that they have gathered from talking to these practitioners of this particular initiative. And it is typical of a lot of slides that I see where they are listing a number of items. Now, in this case, they're challenges, but it could be any sort of items that are listed. Here's the problem with this type of a slide. First of all, it is a list where people are now trying to figure out what does that list mean to them. It does not have context, and in fact, what you'll notice is that items in the list 1, 5, and 6 have to do with stakeholders. Well, that is actually something that should be talked about together. So one of the problems with a lot of lists is that they do not have context for the audience because they're not grouped. So now people are trying to figure out what's going on. They see this entire list come out, and then you start talking about things, and sometimes you'll hear the presenter say, "Oh, yeah, now that's related to something I talked about earlier." Well, people lose context. They don't see the joins in them. In this case, for a makeover, I wanted to give you an illustration of how to make this a little more visual. Now, I'm not going to get rid of all the text, because sometimes you need the text to be there. I understand that. But let me show you a way to make this a little more visual, make it make more sense for the audience. Here's the slide as I redid it. So, better headline: stakeholder, resource, and management challenges face the PI practitioner. Excellent. So now the audience understands there are 3 groups of challenges that they may face. Group number 1, stakeholder challenges. So I give it a grouping, and then I list. I can talk about, first, managing their expectations. We can talk about that. Second, communicating the benefits or values of involving them. Talk about that. And then finally, explaining the complex information to stakeholders that may not actually have a background to understand that complex information. So now I've talked about that one grouping. We can have a discussion about that. Then I say, okay, the next grouping are resource challenges, dealing with time pressures and securing budget. We deal with that grouping. And then finally, our last grouping, management challenges, receiving support from the managers and avoiding management challenges such as legal issues. What this slide does is it doesn't go and get rid of all of the text. That's not the point. Sometimes you need text to be on your slide, and that's okay. But what it does is it gives the audience far greater context because they understand that there are 3 groupings. There are items within each of the groupings that we need to discuss. Now, if this is used as a takeaway or they've taken notes, they can clearly understand they need different tactics, different techniques to deal with the challenges in each of these areas. Whenever you're using a list, here are some lessons that we can learn and take from today's makeover. Lesson number 1, make sure that when you have a list, group items that are related. They may be related by topic, may be related by chronology in terms of time, whatever the natural groupings are. Group them so that they have context, and then build the slide one group at a time. If you put everything up there, people then start focusing on things that are maybe not what you're talking about or maybe not what's most important. So build the groups one by one. If you need to, as I did in the example today, is I built the items within each group so that I gave context with the group heading, and then we could discuss each item individually. Now, this may not be something you need to do for your slide, but in many cases it will be something that you'll want to do. And then finally, make the separations of each of the groups clear. In this particular example, I used horizontal lines in between the groupings so that it was clear that there was a distinction between one group and another group. Sometimes what I've done is to place the text for a group inside of a rectangle or a rounded rectangle and have different color backgrounds or have borders around it so that it is clear the separations between the groups. It's not always going to be possible to get rid of all the text if you're having a list, and in many cases you need the audience to have that list. This makeover hopefully will show you that you can group them, you can make it make more sense by simply using these ideas. For more information on the book, you can go to www.visualsliderevolution.com. For more information on my training workshops, my consulting, and other resources, go to my website at www.ThinkOutsideTheSlide.com. This is Dave Parody with another Slide Makeover video podcast.